The security footage was crystal clear. A young woman with beautiful long auburn hair entered the pediatric ward at 2:47 a.m., when visiting hours had been over for 6 hours. By 3:15 a.m., she was leaving through the same side entrance, but something had changed. Her hair was gone, chopped short and uneven, as if she'd done it herself with medical scissors. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. What the cameras didn't show was the envelope of cash she'd left on the nightstand of room 314, or the handwritten note that simply read, "For Tommy's treatment. A friend." But Marcus Blackwood was about to find out everything. The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of Blackwood Industries' executive suite as Marcus reviewed the quarterly reports. His assistant knocked softly before entering. "Mr. Blackwood, there's a call from Mercy General Hospital. It's about your son." Marcus's blood ran cold. Ever since the divorce 3 years ago, any call about Tommy sent his heart racing. The custody arrangement meant he only saw his 8-year-old son on weekends. But when Tommy had been diagnosed with a rare autoimmune condition 6 months ago, everything changed. "Transfer it immediately." Dr. Patricia Reynolds' voice was warm but professional. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm calling with some unusual news about Tommy's account. Someone made an anonymous payment last night, cash, that covered his entire treatment plan for the next 3 months. Marcus frowned, his fingers tightening around the phone. "That's impossible. I handle all of Tommy's medical expenses. What kind of payment?" $15,000, sir, in cash. The night nurse found it with a note addressed to Tommy. Security is reviewing the footage now, but we thought you should know immediately. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Marcus grabbed his keys, his mind racing. Who would have that kind of cash? And more importantly, who knew about Tommy's condition? He'd kept his son's illness private, not wanting the media attention that came with being the heir to a billion-dollar pharmaceutical empire. The drive to Mercy General took him through downtown Seattle, past the coffee shops and tech startups that had transformed the city. But Marcus barely noticed the familiar scenery. His thoughts were consumed with questions about this mysterious benefactor. At the hospital, Dr. Reynolds met him at the elevator. "The security team has the footage ready in conference room B. Fair warning, it's quite strange." The security guard, a middle-aged man named Peterson, pulled up the relevant clips on his laptop. Here's the individual entering at 2:47 a.m. through the side entrance. She knew exactly where she was going. Quote, Marcus leaned forward, studying the screen. The woman was young, maybe early 20s, with striking auburn hair that fell past her shoulders. She wore a simple green dress and carried a small purse, moving with purpose through the corridors. "She went straight to pediatrics," Peterson continued. "Spent exactly 13 minutes in your son's room. Here's her exit." The transformation was shocking. The same woman, unmistakably, but her beautiful long hair was gone, cropped short and uneven. She moved differently now, her shoulders hunched as if trying to hide. "Good God," Marcus whispered. "She cut her hair. But why?" Dr. Reynolds handed him an evidence bag containing the note. Through the plastic, Marcus could see the careful handwriting. "For Tommy's treatment, a friend." "Mr. Blackwood," Peterson said, pulling up another screen, "there's something else. Our external cameras caught her leaving the building and walking 4 blocks to Danny's 24-hour hair salon. She was inside for 23 minutes. Marcus stared at the timestamp. Everything clicked into place with horrifying clarity. "She sold her hair. She sold her hair to pay for my son's treatment." The room fell silent. Dr. Reynolds cleared her throat gently. "Mr. Blackwood, do you have any idea who this woman might be?" Marcus shook his head slowly, but something nagged at him. The way she moved through the hospital, the confidence with which she navigated to Tommy's room. This wasn't random. "I need copies of everything," he said finally. "Every camera angle, every timestamp. I want to know who she is." "Of course, sir. There's one more thing." Dr. Reynolds hesitated. Tommy was awake when she visited. The night nurse heard voices from his room, but when she checked, she only found the money in the note. What did Tommy say? He told Nurse Martinez that the pretty lady with long hair brought him a get-well card and said she hoped he felt better soon. He's been asking about her all morning. Marcus's chest tightened. His son had been struggling with the isolation that came with his treatment, the way other kids avoided him when his immune system was compromised. The idea that someone, a complete stranger, had risked breaking hospital rules just to comfort Tommy was overwhelming. "I want to see him." Tommy's room was bright with afternoon sunlight streaming through the large windows. His son looked up from his coloring book, his face lighting up when he saw his father. "Dad, did you hear about the hair lady?" Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to disturb the IV line. "Tell me about her, buddy." "She had the most beautiful hair, Dad, like a princess, and she was really nice. She asked about my drawings and said I was a very brave boy." Tommy's eyes sparkled with the memory. "But when she left, her hair was all short. I think she was sad about it." "Why do you think that?" "Because she kept touching where her long hair used to be, like when Mom touches her wedding ring even though she doesn't wear it anymore." The observation hit Marcus like a physical blow. His 8-year-old son had noticed something the security cameras couldn't capture: the woman's emotional state as she sacrificed something precious. That evening, Marcus returned to his penthouse apartment in Bellevue, but he couldn't focus on anything except the mystery woman. He'd built an empire on solving problems, on having answers. But this situation left him completely powerless. His private investigator, Janet Morrison, arrived at 8 o'clock sharp. Marcus had worked with her before on corporate matters, but this was personal. "Janet, I need you to find someone. I have security footage, a time frame, and a location." As he showed her the hospital videos, Janet's expression grew increasingly puzzled. This is unusual behavior for someone planning to steal or cause harm. She looks purposeful but also desperate. "That's what I thought. Can you track her? The hair salon is our best lead. Danny's has been in that neighborhood for 30 years. If she sold her hair there, they'll have records. Hair that color and length? That's premium quality. Could be worth anywhere from $500 to $1,500 depending on the condition." Marcus felt something twist in his stomach. "That's not nearly enough for $15,000 in medical bills." "No, sir," which means she had other sources of income that night. Multiple sales, perhaps, or... Janet paused, studying the footage again. "Mr. Blackwood, look at her purse in the first video versus the last one." Marcus examined the screen closely. In the initial footage, the woman's small purse seemed fuller, slightly bulkier. In the exit footage, it appeared nearly flat. She didn't just sell her hair, he realized. She sold everything she had. The next morning brought more pieces to the puzzle. Janet called with an update from Danny's hair salon. The owner, Danny Castellanos, remembers her clearly. Said she came in around 3:30 a.m., which is unusual but not unheard of. They serve a lot of night shift workers. Her hair was virgin, never dyed, about 20 inches long. He paid her $1,200 for it. $1,200, Marcus repeated. "What about the rest?" "This is where it gets interesting." Danny said she also sold a gold necklace to his wife, Maria, who runs a small jewelry business out of the back of the shop. And she had a laptop, which looked expensive, that she sold to their son for cash. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. She liquidated everything she owned. "There's more, sir." Danny's wife described the necklace, a delicate gold chain with a small pendant shaped like a graduation cap. She said the woman seemed very attached to it, kept hesitating before finally agreeing to sell. A graduation gift, Marcus thought. Something commemorating an achievement. Probably the first in her family to go to college, the kind of thing you'd never sell unless you were truly desperate. Did they get a name? She paid cash, so no formal transaction records. But Danny remembered she mentioned working at the diner across from Mercy General. Said she'd seen your son during her breaks and wanted to help. The pieces were falling into place, but each revelation made Marcus feel worse about the situation. This wasn't some wealthy philanthropist making a tax-deductible donation. This was someone who worked at a diner, someone who had probably saved for months to buy that laptop, someone who treasured a simple graduation necklace. And she'd given up everything for a child she barely knew. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Marcus canceled his afternoon meetings and drove to the area around Mercy General. There were 3 diners within walking distance of the hospital, and he intended to visit each one until he found answers. The first 2 yielded nothing. Neither manager recognized the description, and the staff seemed genuinely puzzled by his questions. But at the third location, Rosie's 24-hour diner, The elderly woman behind the counter immediately knew who he was talking about. "You mean Emma," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "Emma Chen. Sweetest girl you'd ever meet. But she hasn't been in for her shift since yesterday morning. Called in sick, which isn't like her at all." "Emma Chen," Marcus repeated, finally having a name to attach to the face from the security footage. "How long has she worked here?" "About 8 months now. Takes the overnight shift. Works while she's studying for her nursing degree. Always talking about helping people, that one. Always bringing leftover food to the homeless folks who gather behind the hospital." Marcus felt a strange mixture of admiration and concern. A nursing student working nights to pay her way through school and still finding ways to help others. "Rosie, I need to find Emma. It's important." The older woman studied him suspiciously. "You're not some debt collector or something, are you?" "Because Emma's good people, and if someone's harassing her." "No, nothing like that. She helped my family, and I want to thank her properly." Rosie's expression softened slightly. "Well, I don't give out personal information about my employees, but I will say this. Emma's been stressed lately, real stressed. More than just school and work. Something's been eating at her." As Marcus left the diner, his phone buzzed with a text from Janet. Found her address. Emma Chen, 23, lives in the Riverside Apartments on Maple Street, apartment 2B. Also found something else. She's been missing classes at Seattle Community College since yesterday. The Riverside Apartments were exactly what Marcus expected, an aging complex that had seen better days, but clean and well-maintained. The kind of place where people lived when they were working hard to build something better. Apartment 2B was on the second floor, accessible via an external staircase. You raised $15,000 in one night by selling your hair, your jewelry, and your laptop. Marcus sat carefully on the edge of the couch, maintaining distance to avoid seeming threatening. Nobody does that for a stranger. He's not a stranger. The words burst out before Emma could stop them, and immediately she clamped her hand over her mouth as if she could take them back. Marcus leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Emma was quiet for a long moment, her eyes fixed on the floor. When she finally spoke, her voice was so quiet he had to strain to hear. "I've been watching him through the cafeteria window for months. During my breaks at the diner, I'd sit outside and see him in the children's ward. He always looks so alone." She moved to the small kitchen and poured herself a glass of water with shaking hands. The other kids, they were scared to play with him because of his condition. Their parents would pull them away when they saw his medical bracelet. He'd just sit by himself, drawing in his coloring books. Marcus felt a familiar ache in his chest. He'd seen the same thing during his weekend visits. Tommy's isolation, the way other children treated him like he was contagious. "So you decided to help him?" "Not at first." Emma returned to the main room but remained standing, as if ready to flee at any moment. "I thought about talking to the nurses, maybe asking if I could volunteer to read to the kids, but then I overheard 2 doctors talking about his case." She paused, taking a shaky breath. "They said his treatment was expensive, that insurance only covered part of it. They mentioned how some families go bankrupt trying to pay for this kind of care. I thought maybe his family was struggling too." Marcus realized with growing horror that Emma had no idea who he was beyond being Tommy's father. She didn't know about Blackwood Industries, didn't know about his wealth. In her mind, she'd been helping a family facing financial ruin. "Emma, I need to tell you something." "I know what you're going to say," she interrupted, her voice growing stronger. "That I had no right to interfere, that it wasn't my place. But I couldn't just watch him suffer when I could do something about it." "That's not what I was going to say at all." Emma looked up, confusion flickering across her features. "I was going to say that you're the most selfless person I've ever met, and I'm ashamed that a stranger cared more about my son's well-being than I realized he needed." The words hung in the air between them. Emma stared at him as if he'd spoken in a foreign language. "I don't understand." Marcus stood slowly, moving to look out her small window at the city beyond. "Emma, I need you to sit down." "Why? What's wrong?" "Please, just sit." She perched nervously on the edge of a chair, her hands gripping the armrests. "My full name is Marcus Blackwood. I'm the CEO of Blackwood Industries." Emma's brow furrowed. "I don't know what that is." "We're a pharmaceutical company, one of the largest in the country. Emma, I'm worth over $2 billion. The words hit her like a physical blow. Her face went completely white, and for a moment, Marcus thought she might be sick. "No," she whispered. "No, that's not. You can't be." "I am. And that means you sold everything you owned. Your hair, your graduation necklace, your laptop, to pay medical bills for a billionaire's son." Emma stood abruptly, pacing to the kitchen and back like a caged animal. "This isn't happening. This can't be happening." "Emma, you must think I'm the biggest fool in the world." Her voice was rising now, embarrassment and anger mixing together. "Poor, stupid girl who doesn't even know she's trying to help someone who could buy the entire hospital. That's not what I think at all." "Then what?" She spun around to face him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "What could you possibly think of someone so pathetic that she sells her hair for a rich kid who doesn't need her help?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. "I think you saw a lonely, sick little boy and decided his well-being was more important than your own comfort. I think you made a sacrifice that most people wouldn't make for their own family, let alone a stranger, and I think my son is incredibly lucky that someone like you exists in the world." Emma sank back into her chair, the fight going out of her. "I feel so stupid." "You shouldn't. You're the first person in years who looked at Tommy and saw a child who needed help, not a business opportunity or a way to get close to my money." "But I ruined everything. I cut my hair, I sold my grandmother's necklace." She touched the bare space at her throat where the chain had been. "And it was all for nothing." "It wasn't for nothing." Marcus sat back down, his voice gentle but firm. "Do you know what Tommy told me about your visit?" Emma shook her head. "He said a pretty lady with long hair told him he was brave. He's been asking about you constantly." "Emma, my son, has been struggling with feeling different, feeling isolated because of his condition. Your visit reminded him that there are good people in the world who care about him. But you could have paid for his treatment without blinking." "Yes, I could have, and I am paying for it. I always have been. But money can't buy what you gave him that night. You gave him hope. You gave him the feeling that someone cared enough to sacrifice for him." Emma was crying now, quiet tears rolling down her cheeks. "I don't know what to do now. I was supposed to graduate next month, but I can't afford tuition anymore. I can't even afford next month's rent." Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. This young woman had destroyed her financial stability to help his family, and now she was facing consequences that could derail her entire future. "What if I told you that you don't have to worry about any of that?" "What do you mean?" "I mean I'm going to fix this. All of it." Emma's eyes widened with alarm. No, I don't want your charity. I made my choice, and I'll deal with the consequences." "It's not charity, Emma. It's justice. You helped my family when you thought we needed it. Now I'm going to help you because you actually do need it." I said no. Her voice was firm despite the tears. "I don't want your money." Marcus studied her stubborn expression and realized that direct financial help would only wound her pride further. He needed a different approach. "What if it wasn't just money? What if I offered you something you actually wanted?" "Like what?" "A job. At the hospital. In the pediatric ward." Emma's breath caught. "What kind of job?" "We donate millions to Mercy General every year. I could create a position. A patient advocate role, maybe. Or a family liaison position. Someone who works with children and families during long-term treatment." For the first time since he'd arrived, Emma looked genuinely interested. "You could do that?" "I could. It would be a real job, with real responsibilities. Not charity. You'd be helping kids like Tommy every day, and the salary would be enough to cover your living expenses while you finish nursing school." Quote. Emma was quiet for a long time, clearly wrestling with the decision. Finally, she looked up at him. "Why would you do this for me?" Marcus thought about his answer carefully. "Because Tommy needs more people like you in his life. Because other kids in those hospitals need advocates who understand what it's like to struggle. And because—" He paused, surprised by his own honesty. "Because I've spent my whole life surrounded by people who want something from me, and you're the first person I've met who wanted to give something instead." Emma wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "If I said yes, it would be because I want to help those kids, not because I feel sorry for myself. I wouldn't expect anything else." She stood up, moving to look out the same window Marcus had studied earlier. The city sprawled below them, full of people struggling and striving and trying to build better lives. "Okay," she said finally, "but I have conditions." Marcus almost smiled. Even in her darkest moment, Emma Chen was negotiating. "I'm listening. First, this job has to be real responsibilities, real work. I won't be anyone's pet project." "Agreed." "Second, Tommy can't know about any of this. If I'm going to work at the hospital, I don't want him thinking I'm there because of him specifically." Marcus nodded. "That's probably wise." "And third," Emma turned back to face him, "I want to pay you back for the medical bills. Every penny. I don't care if it takes years." "Emma, that's not necessary." "It is to me." Her voice was steel, wrapped in silk. "I may have made a mistake about your financial situation, but I didn't make a mistake about wanting to help Tommy. That payment was my choice, and I want to honor it." Marcus realized he was looking at someone with a strength of character that had nothing to do with money or power. Emma Chen might be broke, but she was richer in integrity than anyone he'd ever known. "All right," he said finally, "we'll work out a payment plan. Something reasonable that won't interfere with your studies or living expenses." Emma nodded, then surprised him by extending her hand for a formal handshake. "Then we have a deal, Mr. Blackwood." As Marcus shook her hand, he couldn't help but think that this was the beginning of something important, not just for Emma, but for his entire family. He just had no idea how important it would become. 6 months later, the pediatric ward at Mercy General was bustling with activity, but it was a different kind of energy than before. Children's laughter echoed through the hallways, and parents no longer sat in isolated silence. The transformation was largely due to one person, Emma Chen, now the hospital's Director of Pediatric Family Services. Marcus watched through the observation window as Emma conducted her weekly support group for parents of chronically ill children. She'd grown her hair back to shoulder length, and confidence radiated from her as she facilitated discussions about insurance navigation, emotional support, and connecting families with similar experiences. "She's remarkable," Dr. Reynolds said, joining Marcus at the window. "In 6 months, she's revolutionized how we handle family care. Our patient satisfaction scores have increased by 40%, and we've had 3 families specifically request transfers here because of our family support program." Marcus nodded, feeling a familiar swell of pride that had nothing to do with business achievements. Emma had taken the position he'd offered and transformed it into something far beyond what either of them had imagined. "How's the scholarship program coming along?" he asked. "Better than expected. The Emma Chen Memorial Scholarship for Healthcare Students has already received applications from over 200 students. The fact that it prioritizes financial need over grades is bringing in candidates who might never have considered healthcare careers otherwise." Marcus smiled at the name. It had been Emma's idea to call it a memorial scholarship, not because anyone had died, but to memorialize the old Emma who had sacrificed everything for a stranger. She'd insisted that the scholarship honor that version of herself while helping others avoid the same impossible choices. Through the window, he watched Emma kneel beside a young girl in a wheelchair, helping her decorate a get-well card for another patient. The sight reminded him of that first security footage, of a young woman moving through the hospital with purpose and compassion. "Mr. Blackwood?" Dr. Reynolds interrupted his thoughts. "There's something else. Emma submitted a proposal last week for a new program. She wants to create a fund that helps families facing sudden medical expenses, specifically to prevent situations where people feel compelled to sell personal belongings to afford treatment." Quote, "Approved," Marcus said immediately. "You haven't even seen the budget projections." "I don't need to. If Emma thinks it's necessary, then it is." Dr. Reynolds studied him with the same expression she'd worn 6 months ago when he'd first explained Emma's story. "You know, in 30 years of medicine, I've never seen anything quite like this. The way you two have built something meaningful from what could have been just an embarrassing misunderstanding." Marcus was about to respond when the support group session ended, and Emma emerged from the conference room. She spotted him immediately and walked over, her professional demeanor softening into genuine warmth. "Marcus, you're early. Tommy's not expecting you for another hour. I wanted to discuss the new fund proposal with Dr. Reynolds. Consider it approved." Emma's eyes widened. "You read it already? I just submitted it yesterday." "I trust your judgment." A faint blush colored Emma's cheeks, something that still happened whenever Marcus expressed confidence in her abilities. Despite 6 months of professional success, she remained humble about her impact. "Actually, there's something I wanted to talk to you about," Emma said, glancing around to ensure they had privacy. "I have a confession to make." Marcus felt a familiar flutter of concern. What kind of confession? "The payment plan we set up for Tommy's medical bills? I finished it last week." "Emma, that's impossible. We calculated it would take you 3 years to." "I took on extra shifts at the diner on weekends, and I've been tutoring nursing students for additional income." She pulled an envelope from her pocket. "This is the final payment, plus interest." Marcus stared at the envelope as if it might bite him. "Emma, you didn't need to add interest." "Yes, I did. It was my debt, and I wanted to honor it completely." Her voice carried the same steel-wrapped-in-silk tone he'd heard in her apartment 6 months ago. "This closes the books between us." "Is that what you want?" "To close the books?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither had been willing to address. Over the past 6 months, their professional relationship had evolved into something more complex. Marcus found himself looking forward to his hospital visits not just to see Tommy, but to watch Emma work. And Emma had begun staying late on days when Marcus visited, their conversations extending far beyond hospital business. "Marcus, Emma began, but was interrupted by a commotion from the children's ward. "Dad! Emma!" Tommy's voice carried down the hallway, filled with excitement. "Come see what I made." They found Tommy in the activity room, surrounded by other children, and proudly displaying a large poster board covered in photos and drawings. "It's for the silent auction," Tommy explained, bouncing on his toes with enthusiasm. "Emma taught us about fundraising, so we're making art to help other kids afford their medicine." Marcus examined the poster more closely. It was a collage of pictures showing children in the ward, engaged in various activities: art therapy, game time, family visits. But at the center was a drawing that made his breath catch, a figure with long auburn hair kneeling beside a child's hospital bed. "Tommy, this drawing." "That's the hair lady," Tommy said matter-of-factly. "I told the other kids about how she visited me that night, and how she cut her hair to help me feel better. Now she's our favorite person in the whole hospital." Emma had gone very still beside Marcus. "Tommy, you know the hair lady is—" "Emma," Tommy finished with a grin. "I figured it out last month when I saw the picture on your desk of you with long hair. Plus, you do that same thing where you touch your hair when you're thinking, just like the hair lady did." Marcus looked between his son and Emma, realizing that Tommy had known for weeks but hadn't said anything. "Are you upset that I didn't tell you I knew?" Tommy asked Emma. Emma knelt down to Tommy's eye level, her voice gentle. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I thought maybe you wanted it to be a secret. Like how superheroes have secret identities." Tommy's logic was perfectly 8-year-old reasoning. "But I wanted to put you in the poster because you're the reason I started feeling better about being in the hospital." "How so?" "Before you came that night, I thought nobody cared about sick kids except their families, but you showed me that sometimes strangers can care too. And now I know that there are lots of people like you working here who care about all of us." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "Tommy, that's the most beautiful thing anyone has ever said to me." "Dad cares about you too," Tommy added with the devastating honesty of childhood. "He talks about you all the time, and he gets that happy look when he sees you." Quote. Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks as Emma looked up at him with surprise. "Tommy," he said carefully, "maybe we should focus on your artwork." "It's okay, Dad. Emma likes you too. I can tell because she saves the good cookies from the cafeteria for when you visit." The silence that followed was broken by Dr. Reynolds clearing her throat from the doorway. "Sorry to interrupt, but Emma, there's a family here who specifically requested to meet with you. They heard about our program through word of mouth." Emma stood, smoothing down her skirt in a gesture Marcus had learned meant she was nervous. "Of course. Tommy, your artwork is absolutely perfect. I'm so proud of you." As Emma left with Dr. Reynolds, Tommy turned to his father with a serious expression. "Dad, are you going to ask Emma to marry you?" Marcus nearly choked. "Tommy, where did that come from?" "Mom said you'd probably get married again someday, and Emma makes you smile the same way Mom used to. Plus, she already loves me, so it would be perfect." "It's complicated, buddy." "Why? Because she used to be poor and you're rich?" The simplicity of the question hit Marcus like a revelation. Over the past 6 months, He'd built elaborate justifications for maintaining professional distance from Emma, concerns about power dynamics, worries about her feeling obligated, fears about complicating their working relationship. But Tommy had cut through all of that with a child's clarity. Maybe it doesn't have to be complicated, Marcus admitted. An hour later, Marcus found Emma in her office, reviewing applications for the scholarship program. She looked up when he knocked on the open door. "How was the family meeting?" he asked. Heartbreaking and hopeful at the same time. "They have a 4-year-old with leukemia, and they've been trying to navigate the system alone." Emma gestured to the chair across from her desk. "But we'll help them. That's what we do now." Marcus sat down, noticing that Emma had framed Tommy's original Get Well card on her desk, the one she'd given him that first night. Beside it was a photo of her with long hair, probably from her nursing school graduation. "Emma, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you ever regret it? That night? Selling your hair? All of it?" Emma was quiet for a moment, her fingers unconsciously touching her shoulder-length hair. "You know, for months I thought I should regret it. I felt so foolish for not knowing who you were, for making such a dramatic gesture based on incomplete information. And now? Now I realized that it wasn't about the money at all. It was about seeing someone who needed help and deciding to act. If I hadn't done it, I never would have met you or Tommy. I never would have found this job that I love. I never would have discovered that I could make a real difference in children's lives." She paused, meeting his eyes directly. "Sometimes the best decisions we make are the ones that seem completely irrational at the time." Marcus felt his heart racing. "Emma, I have something to confess too." "What's that?" "I've been thinking about asking you out for 3 months, but I keep talking myself out of it because I'm afraid it would ruin what we've built here." Emma's smile was radiant. "Marcus Blackwood, you built $1 billion company by taking calculated risks. Are you really going to let fear stop you from asking me to dinner? Is that a yes?" "That's a, what took you so long?" 6 months later, the pediatric ward at Mercy General hosted its first annual fundraising gala. The event raised over $2 million for the Children's Medical Fund, but more importantly, it brought together families, medical staff, and community members in celebration of healing and hope. Marcus stood at the back of the ballroom, watching Emma address the crowd. She wore a simple black dress, and her hair was pinned up elegantly, but what struck him most was her confidence as she spoke about the hospital's mission. "1 year ago," Emma was saying, "I learned that sometimes the most important things we do are the ones that seem impossible at the time. Today I'm surrounded by families who have faced impossible situations and found ways to overcome them, by medical staff who perform impossible healing every day, and by a community that makes impossible generosity feel routine." Tommy, now 9 and healthy enough to attend regular school, tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "Dad, are you going to give Emma the ring tonight?" Marcus patted his jacket pocket, where a small velvet box held an engagement ring. "Maybe after her speech." "Good. I helped pick it out, so she better say yes." As Emma concluded her remarks to enthusiastic applause, Marcus reflected on the strange journey that had brought them to this moment. A desperate young woman selling her hair for a stranger's medical bills had somehow transformed into a love story, a career change, a scholarship program, and a new model for compassionate healthcare. Emma found them in the crowd, her cheeks flushed with success and happiness. "How did I do?" she asked. "Perfect," Marcus said, taking her hand. "Absolutely perfect." Tommy grinned up at them both. "Emma, Dad has something to ask you." "Tommy," Marcus warned, but Emma was already looking at him with curiosity and growing excitement. "Actually," Marcus said, his voice suddenly steady with certainty, "I do have something to ask you." As he dropped to one knee in the middle of the hospital fundraising gala, surrounded by families whose lives had been touched by Emma's compassion and Tommy's infectious joy, Marcus realized that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the most impossible acts of kindness. And sometimes, when you think you're rescuing someone else, you end up saving yourself. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.